The athlete I'm training is Demario Davis. Even if you're just sitting at a desk, like I'm sitting here, but you can't see. I've got one of my spin boards under my feet. I've got a little weight over here.
So, I mean, blink twice if you help the Eagles beat the Chiefs. That would make me super happy.
I'd say right now I'm kind of the most advanced as an athlete, where I'm starting to get into the teacher phase of that, where I'm as a trainer, I'm able to make an impact and help people.
Hello, and welcome to the Liberty Spenders Podcast. I am your host, Kurt Ludhart, and co-founder of the Prosper Group, an agency that's helped raise over $500 million and helped elect over 100 members of Congress, 15 governors, 15 U.S. senators, and 1 president. Business owners, what if you could exponentially grow your business by tapping into a lucrative and engaged audience of 76.5 million people we call Liberty Spenders? These Americans spend $5 trillion a year and are motivated to buy from businesses that share their values. If you want to learn more, you can get access to our new best-selling book at libertyspenders.com/free. Our guest today, I'm excited to have Jacob Shields, who is a strength and conditioning coach and a podcast host who is passionate about the intersection of fitness, entrepreneurship, and human performance. He's the host of the Quality Values podcast, where he explores topics like memory, MMA, and creative pursuits with notable guests. And he's the co-host of the Nervous System Training podcast, diving into strategies for optimizing the nervous system. Jacob, I'm pumped to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Kurt. This is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited because you have kind of an interesting collection of expertise, entrepreneurship, and human performance. How did all of this come together? Let's start with, how'd you get here?
Yeah, I'd say the common thread, I'm interested in all different things, and I'm sure we'll get into some of them, but the common thread is learning. Like I really like learning. I enjoy being in situations where I learn efficiently, quickly. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of the core thing that I'm after in all the endeavors I go through.
Yeah. And I like what you're talking about when you are discussing the intersection between entrepreneurship and human performance and the like. You know, I have owned with my wife a business for 20 years, and I know how mentally demanding entrepreneurship is, but also physically demanding. And I often think to myself, I've been at a desk all day, but I'm going to bed bone tired, like I've been out running. And so how important it is for entrepreneurs to be optimized for performance. So what's some of the things that you typically talk about on your show? What are some of the tools and tips that you get into with some of your guests?
Yeah, so on I do 2 podcasts. The one is the Quality Values podcast, and that's open to all types of guests. The core question on that show is, what are your values in the context of your story? And so it's broad enough that I can talk with anyone, any domain, and learn. The other podcast is the Nervous System Training podcast. I do that with a co-host, Quentin Torres, and that's much more specific on training specifically the nervous system. I'm interested in overall health, wellness, performance. I do martial arts, sports. So I'm interested in all that. You know, I'm a strength coach. I lift weights and all that, but it's the nervous system specifically that I'm dialing in on.
Yeah, how'd you get interested in that over, everything else you could have dove deep on?
Yeah, it happened. Say kind of naturally. I'm naturally drawn to it. I found this niche of training. The history of it is, it goes back to this guy called Marv Marinovich. He's the one who pioneered it. He was the first strength and conditioning coach in the NFL. He started the draft combine. So he created this system. He was the one who made nervous system training. And then I started creating my own devices. I have a carpentry background, like from years back. And so once I got into the fitness world, I started seeing movements I wanted to create. So I started making devices. And then I found these training systems as, to me, as far as selling these devices go, I thought the trainers in this sphere would know what to do with them first. They're kind of, they're niche devices like balance and stability and speed devices.
Yeah. So this is fascinating to me, right? I've never thought about training my nervous system, right?
Yeah.
I'm also trying to define what that actually means. So
Yeah.
when you're training nervous system, what's that mean? Is that kind of a mental coaching thing, mindset? How would you define it?
Yeah. So, specifically what I mean is like the nerves running through your body. And so, what's involved with that is your central nervous system. So your brain, the way your brain is communicating with your body, and then your fascia as well. The fascia is fascinating. The more I learn about it, the more interesting it gets. But, the, my favorite way to describe fascia is it's kind of like a t-shirt. It's all connected through your body. If you pull it in one area on your body, it pulls everywhere, but it surrounds every organ. It surrounds every muscle. And so the fascia is what's responsible for a fast twitch movement. That's what keeps your body coordinated, and it can store memory. Your nerves run through fascia. So when we're targeting nervous system training, we're trying to get your brain communicating with your body. So like that mind muscle connection as fine tuned as possible, as responsive as possible. And then we're also working on the fascia so that the memory within your body is responding to stimuli again as fine tuned and quickly as possible.
So is the outcome there for an athlete, is it that they, as they train, I got to be here, if I'm an NFL player, right? I got to be at this part of the field or this place at this time. And I want to be able to move instantaneously. My brain says I need to be there. My body reacts like that. Is that yeah.
Exactly. It's, I'd say efficiency is like the output that we're specifically going after. But what that means is that I'm 28. I'm just starting to experience like getting sore more and more after my workouts and stuff like that. But I have noticed, like, if I look back when I was a kid, like there is a lag now. Just like my brain knows what to do, especially the older I get, the smarter I get. If I play sports and stuff still, if my brain knows what to do, and sometimes there's a lag, like before my body actually goes into action. So it's about reducing that lag and syncing up the brain and the body so that you don't really have to think. Your body just knows what to do, and there's no hesitation.
Yeah. So the mental picture when I think of any kind of exercise or training, I always think of running, weightlifting, that sort of thing. So is the nervous system training similar to that? Are they wired up with their head? What's that training look like?
There's different ways to do it. I actually just did a podcast yesterday with a guy who's using wires, and he has a device that it stimulates your muscles according to random patterns so that your brain never picks up on the pattern of it. But that's a whole different rabbit hole. The training I do does not look like what you would normally see in a gym. It's a combination, like historically, it's a combination of the plyometrics that go back to the Soviets in the 80s, the 70s, and then it kind of more Western physical therapy. So it kind of looks like explosive physical therapy type movements. There's a lot of instability devices. So we use the stability balls that you've seen. We use slant boards a lot, balance pipes. So a lot of things that really challenge your balance, your coordination, your control.
So I know from one of the things that we exchanged some communications about that you're celebrating is you've got an opportunity to work with an NFL football team. So, I mean, blink twice if you help the Eagles beat the Chiefs. That would make me super happy.
Can't claim that one.
Yeah. But how did all of that, how did the NFL thing come together? I mean, that's really top level. You almost couldn't train at a higher level than an NFL athlete.
Yeah. And so the athlete I'm training is Demario Davis, and then he's in his offseason program today. But yeah, he's Pro Bowler, one of the best linebackers in the league. And his trainer found me. The nervous system training podcast I do with that guy Quentin Torres I mentioned. His Instagram is Quentin.Torres36. But so yeah, he and I do the podcast. Quentin has an online course that I do sales for, and I've Quentin and I have been progressively kind of getting more involved. So Jose, the trainer of Demario Davis, reached out to us through Quentin. I took the call, and then it was honestly just a lucky thing. Like, we had our discussion, and then at the end it was like, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm in Nashville." He's like, "No way, we're going to be training there next week. You want to come out?" And then it was cool. I got a week to show what I could do, and then they were gone for a couple weeks. But in that week, they liked what I brought to the table, so they brought me back for the rest of their training camp. So yeah, it's the system works. It's a really it's not very popular because it's hard to execute, and so you don't see people training the system in the gym that much. But yeah, I'm happy I found this niche because it really does work. So yeah, I think the system speaks for itself when people feel it.
Yeah, it is that. Is the nervous system training? Is that? I know you have a provisional patent on a fitness device called the Spin. How do we say that? Spin climb.
Yeah.
So is that related to the nervous system training?
Yeah, it's a key component of the nervous system training is training the feet, and one of the primary tools for training the feet is a slant board. So it's just an angled board that you stand on. The version I have spins it on the top, and so it's just an innovation on there's flat spin boards and there's angled slant boards. But I was trying to work with my clients, and I was trying to get them to, if you bend your knee and spin on it, you're internally and externally rotating the knee joint. If you stand with a straight leg on it, you're internally and externally rotating your hip joint. So with different clients, I was trying to go through those movement patterns. And then eventually I put a real Lazy Susan, like a plastic Lazy Susan on a slanted rock, and I was using that, and then it kind of clicked, and I was like, I just got some plywood put together. I ordered industrial grade Lazy Susan hardware off Amazon, and that was the original prototype.
Well, I mean, that's really exciting. The developments that are there, and to be training such a high level athlete is great. And hopefully you get that patented and maybe everywhere. Maybe you'll do it in an infomercial one day. I know that there's you've done some work in what you call fight and flight conditioning. And, again, maybe that's a little off is it still in the nervous system area, or is it a different type of conditioning?
Specifically, as a trainer, nervous system training is a system I found that I relate to. There's several systems that I relate to, and I would consider them all like alignment focus systems. There are systems that are targeting improved alignment. You could think of that as improved posture. I'd say alignment is a little more than just posture, but to simplify it, it's they're all systems that promote good posture. And so nervous system training, I think, is kind of like the best brand of all the systems I'm into. So I'm tied to that. I do the podcast with that. But really what I'm interested in is functional movement and like becoming the highest performing individual that I can, and helping my clients achieve the same thing. So the fight and flight conditioning is kind of like the whole picture of my focus as a trainer. And so the idea behind that is the fight and flight response is the human's response to stress, right? And so the guy who coined that term, it's actually a really interesting book. This was like over 100 years ago. His name is Walter Cannon. He wrote this book called The Wisdom of the Body. A lot of the info in there is pretty outdated at this point. Like we just know more about how the body works. But he's the one who coined the fight and flight response, and he's the one who coined the term homeostasis. And his whole research, his whole life was like spent understanding how the body responds to stress, and understand and he kind of viewed the body as a system of fluid matrices, like fluids are airs and gas. So he just kind of understood the way the body circulates fluids, and he was kind of looking at how the fluids circulate in stressful situations versus homeostatic situations. But anyways, the idea is I do running and martial arts, so that's the fight and the flight. But I think in order to be like the epitome of a human performance, at least physically, it's like having the strongest fight and flight response, and then having the strongest baseline at homeostasis. So my whole training system is about preparing for fight and flight conditions. So I like to think that I could be ready to fight or, flee, whether that's, handle a situation up close or throw a backpack on and run 50 miles at a time. So I like to be prepared for any situation. And my theory is that in training for that, my baseline abilities at homeostasis are kind of the strongest.
So I'm starting to really understand how, say, nervous system training would be really powerful for a professional athlete. Fight and flight, I can understand. If I am a, white collar person who sits at a desk all day, is your kind of training superfluous? Like, hey, you're not going to need to know any of this stuff, or is there value in training your nervous system as an entrepreneur or an executive, or concurrently this fight and flight conditioning you do?
I mean, I think there's value across the board. Like as a product of the nervous system training, when I'm really training well, I notice that like if a glass slips off the table, just I'm good at grabbing it. Like little things like that. Like it's just nice to kind of be aware for your body to be coordinated. Your brain and body are connected, responding quickly. But beyond that, it's interesting. One of the best indicators of longevity is grip strength, right? And the theory behind that is it's kind of the causality can go in either direction. Either because you have strong grip strength, you're still able to do stuff. You're still able to open all the pickle jars, like use the pliers. And so because of that, you just do more things. And so you do more things, your body remains more able. And as by an extension, you're healthier. The other side of that is the other direction of the causality is, like you can flip that. You can train your grip strength to do more things and then to get in that pattern of just being more functional as a human. So like rather than just being blessed with good grip strength and then as a result maintaining strength, you can reverse it by training your grip strength and kind of put yourself in a position where you're just like able to do more things throughout the day. So that's like a simple microcosm of what I think is the larger system of humans. So in general, I think the more you can do, the more you do. Like, even if you're just sitting at a desk, like I'm sitting here, but you can't see. I've got one of my spin boards under my feet. I've got a little weight over here, and so like I just like I'm a fidgety person. So I do the podcast. I'm trying to keep my shoulders from being too crazy. I know how it looks on the camera, but at the same time, I just do stuff because I can, because my body is comfortable with these things. It's for a normal person, we can talk about the homeostasis. Like the idea is to have the highest level of the abilities at homeostasis. And so by training the extremes, your base levels are higher than they would be if you weren't training the extremes. And so healthy homeostasis would mean like a lower heart rate, lower blood pressure, just all that.
Well, I think it's interesting, the connection between your training work and your podcast. So how did why did you start it? Right. I have a theory. Here I am with one of my own, but why did you start a podcast as a trainer, and what benefits have you gained from having one?
Hey, business owners, did you know there's 76.5 million faith-based and conservative consumers that are looking to support brands that align with their values?
That's a $5 trillion opportunity, and if you're not tapping into it, you're leaving money on the table. Our new book, Liberty Spenders, is your ultimate guide to reaching this influential audience using conviction-driven marketing.
That's right. We break down real-world strategies that successful brands are using right now to connect with this audience authentically, build trust, and drive long-term business growth.
So if you're truly serious about standing out in today's crowded market, grab your copy today on Amazon or visit libertyspenders.com. And don't miss out on this revolutionary strategy called conviction-driven marketing.
My first podcast wasn't trainer specific. It's that Quality Values podcast. I started it, or mentally I started, I should say. I didn't publish my first episodes, but I started recording conversations when I was traveling. I'm a big traveler. I love to travel. I've been solo traveling ever since I was a kid, really. And I would end up having these wild conversations, like some stories that are the crazy stories. And a few times I missed it, like where I didn't have it recorded, or I tried to write it down later and I couldn't remember the details and stuff. And so then I eventually started recording those conversations and writing like a blog. This This was years ago. I can't even remember if I posted the blog, but I kind of just knew I was a podcaster. So then I started the podcast to have a single channel to release these conversations. But once I started making these fitness devices, these balance devices, I made a list of the 10 trainers in the world that I thought would help me sell the devices the best. And then my goal since then has been to get them on the podcast. So one of those trainers along the way was that guy, Quentin, who's now my co-host on the Nervous System Training Podcast. So we did an episode. The results of that episode, like, it just got 10x the views of any of my other episodes. I could tell people were searching for the keywords. So I reached out to him about doing our own podcast. And so now he and I have teamed up to do a podcast, and that's what's led to this football opportunity. So I don't know. I mentioned I'm a martial artist, and then my strategy in martial arts is get to the transition and then like try to find an angle in the transition, but it's the same thing in the podcast. It's kind of like an open-ended opportunity. It just put it out there, and then when something starts to make sense, you see an angle, just lean into that. So that's kind of been my strategy so far with the podcast.
Yeah. And I know you've got your nervous system podcast, which is with Quentin, you said, right, is really getting success. So, and your quality values podcast, you have a much broader type of guest. So what's the target for that show? And, what kind of, guests have you had, and what kind of value are you creating?
I've always wanted to be an artist, an athlete, or an entrepreneur. I had a very fortunate upbringing. The type of upbringing where I could really pursue whatever I wanted to pursue. My sisters, one sister is a lawyer, the other sister is in law school. Like I really had opportunities to do that, to do whatever I wanted. And I always just wanted to be artist, athlete, or entrepreneur, which is kind of like, there's no set path. There's no like, you just get this degree, you do that residency, and then you've got the accreditation. So yeah, my end vision is to have tiny house communities where artists, athletes, and entrepreneurs go for like a medium term time, like 4 to 6 months, and they have the resources and the time to focus on their craft, focus on their sport, whatever it is, the space and the expertise around them to make it happen. So yeah, I did one of those. I went through a phase. I was reading a lot of self-help books and trying to figure out. I always kind of had this vision, but it's always seemed far away. But at some point, I set this 10-year goal, and then I started reverse engineering it. I was like, well, if I'm going to have a place for artists, athletes, and entrepreneurs, first of all, I need to be, to at least some extent, artist, athlete, entrepreneur. I don't need to be professional, but I need to at least go through the trials and tribulations of each of those domains. And then I need to meet the highest level artists, athletes, and entrepreneurs and collaborate with them, and just to start learning what it takes to do well, what it takes to come back from not doing well, all that. So the podcast is really, I see it as a tool to just chip away at that long-term vision.
Well, as somebody who hosts a podcast, I found it to be really helpful. Now, the most interesting thing, though, I thought maybe more like surprising for me, was that you just published a book of poetry. So have you always been into poetry? Have you always written poetry? What inspired the poetry book?
It was a book it was lyrics first. It was meant to be an album, and then I spent like a couple of years trying to figure out how to sing, and it wasn't I mean, I honestly believe anyone can learn anything, but I don't think at this phase of life I'm willing to put it the time it's going to take me to get over that hump. So I started working with it. I changed it into a book of poetry. I use pictures from my travels. So each page is a picture, a title, and a poem, which is most of I'd say 90% of the poems in there were originally pieces of a song, different songs. And so the whole book is organized non-linearly. Yeah, I'm kind of a math nerd, so it's organized according to a graph. But the book is called Relative Momentum, and the idea is like on the beginning of the book is kind of like the pieces of my life that were when I was going backwards the fastest, and the end of the book is kind of pieces of my life where I was going forwards the most, and it's nonlinear. So when I'm going down, I'm going down fast. When I'm going up fast, and then when I'm in the middle, there's not much movement. But that's really where the magic happens. I think that's where the growth happens. That's where the lessons are learned. So I was trying to express that. I don't know. there's a lot of different elements. So we'll see how people take to the book. I just published it recently.
Yeah. And is it on Amazon?
Yep. You can find it on Amazon. It's called Relative Momentum by Jacob Conlon Shields.
Well, we'll try to put that in the show notes as well for people who might be interested in it, because that seems like a really fascinating project. I want to dig into this long-term vision you have a little bit now, where you want to bring all the things together that you do and create a community. So what attracts you to that idea or to that kind of impact?
I think that's always just kind of what I would have wanted. Like if that's what would have been the most helpful for me. Like I said, I've had a very fortunate life. My parents are awesome. I had great education. I had my choices of many different colleges to pick from. Like in every single way, I had all the advantages. But I think just always what I wanted was like support for the not sure thing path. I've learned from really cool mentors along the way. But it's always been informal. It's always been kind of self-guided. I go find people who are doing what I want to do. I pick their brain. And so, yeah, I definitely still feel like I'm the student phase of this path, but at some point I anticipate, I'll get to the point where I can start transitioning into the teacher, and start taking on that role more and more. So yeah, like I said, it's for artists, athletes, entrepreneurs. I'd say right now I'm kind of the most advanced as an athlete, where I'm starting to get into the teacher phase of that, where I'm as a trainer, I'm able to make an impact and help people. I still train jiu-jitsu. I'm still an athlete as well, but I think I'm starting to reach the phase where I can offer more as a trainer than I can as an athlete. And so, my goal is to continue growing as an entrepreneur and an artist until I can kind of enter those mentor phases for those areas as well.
Well, you mentioned, you've sought out mentors and you've spent a lot of time in self-help. Is there a mentor or an author or someone who's had the greatest impact on your life?
It's probably not what you'd expect, but Nassim Taleb. Are you familiar with Nassim Taleb?
I believe so. He's the Black Swan guy, isn't that?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's my favorite author. A lot of my poetry book is kind of based on his concepts. The whole idea of the Black Swan is like, and he's talking about it more along the lines of risk. I'd say I have the inverse focus of opportunity, but Nassim Taleb's, he's a risk expert. He started as a quantitative investor, and he understands risk unlike anyone I've studied. But his theory with the Black Swan and his investing strategy is all based on investing in opportunities that most years are going to slightly decline, or in most situations that his portfolio is going down a little bit, but it's all defensive opportunities. So then when something bad happens, like his portfolio skyrockets. And so relative to the S&P 500, most years it's going to lose relative to the S&P 500, but some years it's going to gain to such a degree that it covers all the losses from the other years. So I'd say, again, I read his books in my early 20s, and my whole approach to goal setting and around like seeking these black swan opportunities, like leaning into like writing a book. Most of the time, you're going to lose a little bit of money and time. Like it's a lot of effort. Most books aren't going to be profitable, but some books are that New York Times bestseller where it's just inordinate amount of money relative to the effort. So I've shifted my focus into pursuing these black swan opportunities. They're also called fat tail, which is they're opportunities that are governed by exponential laws rather than normal distribution bell curve laws.
Well, I of course I've seen him as a finance guy, but never as somebody I might read for anything outside that, which I've never really taken up any of his writings because I figure he's sort of contained to traders and others, which is not something I want to dabble in directly, right? Let somebody else touch it. So I think it's interesting how you're trying to apply that to other areas of your life. So that's really compelling. I I also think it's interesting is you've talked about approaching mentors at various stages. So I think that's something that a number of people I know talk about wanting to do, but don't, other than buying a book of an author, right, which you can do without approaching anybody, might be a little scared of the idea of, oh, I'm going to approach somebody for their mentorship and help. So how do you approach that? Are you cold? You find somebody, you cold call them and say, I'd like to talk. How have you got to some of these mentors?
Yeah. So first of all, I am perfectly comfortable cold calling. My claim to fame with that is I briefly did memory training, and I one time cold called UFC coaches until one of the UFC trainers gave me the number of his athlete, and then I ended up doing memory training with the UFC athlete. And he was my only memory training client at the time, so it wasn't like I had. So yeah, I believe in cold calling, but I'd say when I reach out to people, and I reach out to people all the time. Like most of the time they don't respond, but I reach out to people in the niches that I really know. So the people where I understand the context of the world they're operating in, I kind of understand what are their competitive advantages, and then I write them a very specific message that describes why I want to talk to them specifically, and I try to appeal to whatever that niche is. And like, for instance, I reached out to this guy Quentin. This was when he did the nervous system training. I told him I was interested in these instability devices. It was a very specific message. I'd much rather send like 2 or 3 very specific messages rather than like the same copy and pasted message to 100 different people. But usually usually I can write a message, and I feel like if they'll see it, they'll respond. If, when I really take my time. And so then it's just a matter of writing it so that they'll see it. So with the UFC guy, it was getting a hold of his coach. On Instagram, they recently changed the rules where now you have to follow someone for them to really see it. So you can try to, I don't know. I've done emails, Instagram, cold calls, but there's a challenge. There's an art to like making sure that they hear it, they see it, what you're trying to say. And then the other side of it is what you say when they do hear it. And so.
Yeah, because I'm tying in this black swan concept that you're discussing in with it, right? Because if you think about it, like you're talking about as opportunities, right? So if you reach out to busy people who don't know you or who are more, have a higher status in theory, the greatest likelihood is they don't reach back. But if you look at the black swan as the 1 or 2 people who do, but the opportunity is exponential, right?
Exactly.
I think that's a really interesting. I've never thought of things like that, but it's a really powerful way to look at things, because it opens up. You start thinking, yeah, maybe maybe I should be more willing to take to try to hit a grand slam, right? Because I don't need to hit it every time at bat, but if I do it 1 out of every 100, maybe the baseball metaphor is bad because you're still, if you struck out 99 times and hit 1 grand slam in baseball, you still stink. But in life, you're probably probably end up with some really powerful relationships.
That's the thing. Like the game of baseball is the rewards are confined. You can only get 4 runs at a time. That's the maximum on any one pitch. But in any situation that's governed by these fat tails, these power law distributions, it's not like that. It's like you could strike out 1,000 times, but then all of a sudden you could get a $10,000 or 10,000 run home run. It's the rewards are completely disproportionate with the losses. The people who understand this are the angel investors. They'll lose $10,000 30 times in a row, but then that one time that $10,000 turns into shares of a multi-million-dollar company. So
creating the opposite of this, black swan concept, where I've always thought of it as, okay, we're preparing for disaster, right? The economy crashes, but because we are prepped for a black swan, we make money. But to look at it in the inverse, a lot of things fail, but you just need, one significant opportunity to really take off. And I think that's true of of life, in my experience and in business, it's often the one relationship, the one client, the one referral partner that produces so much results. And if we look at that the way you're describing, I think it opens up so much more thinking about, okay, look at the opportunity that's there if I take on these activities.
And then the strategy there is to live as if that's the opportunity, to treat that client like they're that client that's going to give you 100 referrals over the lifetime, and if they're not, and you treat it like you put yourself in a position for them to be that client, maybe, for whatever reason, it doesn't work, or, things move on, but you got to operate that way so that when that client does come, you're in the position and you've got the ball rolling in that direction.
That's powerful. And I think maybe one of the biggest takeaways for the episode. And so I definitely want to make sure we'll highlight this in our notes and in some of our clips, because I think it's a powerful way of looking at the world. That being said, I think this is a good time to go into our lightning round. So here we go. We always like to ask 3 questions for every guest at the end of every episode. We like to do about 90 seconds each, but accountability is low. So just roll with it. And first question we like to ask everybody is, what legacy are you looking to leave behind from your work?
Do what feels right in my gut, it's, and yeah, so more so than the legacy, like I just, when I look back, I don't want to be like, oh, I should have done what I knew I could have done. And that's, I've got an opportunity. I'm going to take it. I can live with the losses. So yeah, I want my legacy more just to be about not having hesitated.
Yeah. I like the not having hesitated piece. This one I think is interesting. I get some of the most interesting answers to this. What's a topic that's been capturing your interest lately? Something you've gone down the rabbit hole on, but it's outside of your, typical topics. It's not nervous system training. It's not related to health and fitness. But what's something that's captured your attention?
I've been reading this book, Gödel, Escher, Bach. I've tried to read it multiple times. I love books. This is a difficult book for me, but it's about loops. Are you familiar with MC Escher, the artist? He does these paintings. It'll look like there'll be like a box of stairs, and each level looks like it's going up, but it ends where it starts, which is like impossible. You can't have 4 ascending staircases that gets back to the beginning. So this guy, Douglas Hofstadter, he talks about this artist Escher, but also Bach's music and the mathematician Gödel, and other examples too of these loops that it's a metaphor for consciousness, but these he calls them strange loops. But I would say in general, I've been interested in philosophical loops.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like an interesting topic. I'd heard of the artist, although I couldn't have told you anything about him or what he painted. But very interesting. Well, I want to end with this. I like to give every guest an opportunity to do about a 90-second shameless marketing pitch, right? So the question is, who should find you? Like, who should come work with you and why?
As far as a trainer goes, anyone who's solely focused on performance, along with the performance comes the aesthetics, look good, feel good, all that. But it's the people who are specifically interested in achieving the maximum of their body's potential. So that's Fight and Flight Conditioning on Instagram. You can find me, Jacob Conlon Shields, elsewhere online as well. And then as far as my other podcast, Deep Thinkers, anyone who wants to watch that, or is people who like to deep think, the core question on that is, what are your values in the context of your stories? So I try to go deep with all my guests, and really get to the core mechanisms that drive them, that have shaped their lives, shaped their expertise. So people who like to think deep And I'm always interested in having guests on too. So if you want to go deep with me, you can reach out, and I love to have these conversations.
Well, this has been great. And I'm so happy that we connected and that you came on our show, and really thank you for joining.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Devin Sizemore, for connecting us. He's an awesome shout out, Devin. He's one of the best connectors that I've ever had.
Yes, the great connector. Well, to get in touch with Jacob, you're on Twitter at quality_values and fight_N_flight. So check him out there. What is another good place if they want to find you?
If you just look up my full name, Jacob Conlon Shields, you can find me. I'll pop up on all the platforms.
Well, again, thank you for joining. And for those of you listening, thank you for tuning in. If you love this episode, make sure to like us and subscribe so other people can find us. We also invite you to join the Liberty Partnership community at libertyspenders.com. And again, if you'd like to learn more about what we're up to, check out our new book called Liberty Spenders. You can get it today at libertyspenders.com/free. Until next time. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Liberty Spenders podcast. If you're a business owner, we hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights on how to grow your business.
If you enjoyed the show, do us a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. It really helps us reach more entrepreneurs and leaders like you who are ready to make an impact.
And write something flattering, because I read them all. Don't forget to grab your copy of Liberty Spenders too, available now on Amazon and at libertyspenders.com. It's packed with proven strategies to help you reach the 76.5 million consumers who are looking for brands that share their values.
We'll see you next time as we continue exploring how to grow your business with purpose and conviction.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode and the one after that.